Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Film Club, where I am joined every episode by an amazing guest to chat through a couple of classic movies and to explore how they overlap with our own personal hobby history and the history of Warhammer and Games Workshop as well. Today I am joined by the Remembrancer, and we're going to be chatting about a couple of, I'm not going to say classic horror films, but definitely some fun horror films.
Some interesting ones, yeah, fun ones.
Interesting, that's the right word. We're going to be going through Virus from 1999 and Lifeforce from 1985. How are you doing, man? Are you okay?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. Yeah, very good. I think I'm probably doing better than you because I didn't watch these films that recently. I've had a little bit of a cooling off period to reflect, but you're coming in pretty hot on these.
I watched both of them back to back with my girlfriend on Saturday with a magnum of wine and some crisps, and so it was good fun.
Probably the best way to tackle it, and not because they're not fun, because there is some really interesting, good stuff in here, but they are also at times. I think both of these films can be quite challenging in their own ways, right?
I honestly don't think, for example, Virus is a bad film. I think it's fun. It's kind of schlocky and cheesy. But I was quite surprised when I went on to Rotten Tomatoes and it's like 14% reviewer, 22% audience. Like, whoa, that's harsh. What's going on here? I don't know.
Yeah, both. I think there's a certain level of infamy for both of them. But let's start with Virus, right? So this is 1999. This is post Event Horizon. And this is a sort of another sort of take on the kind of almost like a haunted house, but this time we're on a ship, an aircraft, a battleship in the middle of the ocean, a Russian ship that has communicated with its satellite. And unfortunately, that satellite has been taken over by a space virus. And that has now been downloaded into the ship. Consoles have exploded. Something else has happened on the ship, and a sort of salvage tugboat arrives that's got Donald Sutherland on, it's got Jamie Lee Curtis on, William Baldwin, Cliff Curtis. They arrive, and they're going to salvage this battleship. But when they get on, they start to find the bodies of the people who were there, and they start to find that this virus has actually animated some of the technology and is kind of almost creating like technological zombies. And then from there, you get this kind of like, high stakes action horror.
It's an interesting thing as well that both movies start with a weird kind of light show in the sky causing trouble. Like this one, it's a big purple like wave that hits the satellite dish, and then in Lifeforce, the other film, it's like a big green comet, and it's just like, what's going on with these like light shows in the sky that are causing destruction? But
sinister, that is sinister lights in the sky. That's where it all starts.
And it's just like the opening of Virus, where it's just it's like a Russian like technology and like I guess like innovation branch of like this on this like battleship. So it's like a heavily defended battleship with like scientists on, and then there's like the satellite in space communicating with them, and then there's just one of the crew in space is just like there with the camera. Oh, what's that big purple thing? Doesn't look ominous. Let's take a photograph. And then it goes really badly for them, poor fellas.
Yeah, there's maybe a little bit of curiosity killed the cat running through this, right? Where people are not quite as cautious as they probably should be.
I am curious. How did you discover this film originally?
So I remember Virus coming out back in the day. So 99, because I long watched any old nonsense that came out of the cinema, that came out of the rental store. I would just be all over it. So anything that was like sci-fi, anything that was horror would instantly pique my interest. So I don't remember whether or not I saw this at the cinema or on VHS, as it would have been at the time.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty certain I saw this as it came out, more or less as it came out.
Okay.
And yeah, it was it was one of those. It was one of those sort of it was a bit of fun, and it was something that ticked a few boxes, had some cool stuff, some great special effects, I think. But maybe overall, as an entire thing, as an entire story, wasn't the most satisfying experience.
Yeah, I don't think it could be described as compelling, but I honestly think I really love practical effects, and especially as a bit of a dying medium for film, which is really sad to see because everything's CGI these days. Look at me sounding like an old head. But I remember seeing this film on television. I don't know. I think it was when I was in my 20s. So it was like a good decade or so ago.
Hmm.
And it was just one of those things where you just like, you put on the television and then there's like, oh, what film's on today? And it just kind of turned up. And I remember being like oddly like intrigued by it. And I think it's fair to say I was a bit into Warhammer at the time, but I wasn't as much as now as I am now. And then I keep looking, I keep thinking back to this film and being like, oh yeah, that reminds me of Warhammer a bit. That
Sure.
oh yeah, that's and I really like the practical effects. They remind me of things like The Thing. I know the director of this film. It's the only film he directed. His name's John Bruno, but he was the VFX director for Heavy Metal, and Alien versus Predator, and Emma's Wish. He was an actor apparently, and like Terminator 2, he was the visual effects director. So it's like, okay, there's 3D Battle Across Time.
Yeah,
that's
a really interesting story about like how that came together. Because he was like good. He worked closely with James Cameron, which and obviously Aliens has its own relationship with Warhammer, and there's a lot of inspiration taken from that, I think. But yeah, here John Bruno, this VFX specialist, the heavy metal segment that you mentioned was the opening of the heavy metal animation in 1981, which is the very cool astronaut in a Corvette that is like parachuted from space through the atmosphere onto the planet. It's very cool. But yeah, he went on to work on, it was Terminator 2 3D Battle Through Time, which was
what's that?
It's a very cool, I've never been on it, but I have watched the video of it. James Cameron and John Bruno together, I think, directed basically an interactive 3D ride for Universal Studios.
Oh, okay.
So it opens with, like, you go into a Cyberdyne technology show and you see a load of stuff in real life, like in the queue and in the start of the show. And then it transitions with some stunt performers from a raid on that Cyberdyne place that you're at into a video that you're watching on the big screen in 3D with Arnie, with Edward Furlong and all that sort of stuff. So it's a very cool idea, cutting edge stuff at the time for like 3D technology and stuff. And yeah, so John Bruno directed that, and then sort of from there came into work on Virus, which I don't know if you knew that, and you may have, and you may have read it, but there was a comic book of Virus before the film was made. So this was really interesting. Yeah, they did. The guys who wrote it, so I think it's Dennis Feldman, Chuck Farrer, and Jonathan Hensley. They actually like had pitched it as a film script. I think Chris Farrer pitched it as a film script. Nobody wanted it, so he went away and wrote it up as a comic book. Did a 4-issue comic with Dark Horse, and then sold the comic book rights to the studios to make it into an actual film. And then it went through like some layers of production. I don't think it was production hell, but some like a little bit
purgatory,
of production torment,
maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's actually a comic book out there as well, which I'm quite intrigued by to see how they explore the same idea in a comic book form.
I'm not a comics buff by any means, but I always find comics are really interesting vestiges of novelty. Like the Warhammer comics, like Blood Quest.
Sure.
Like, I went through such a rabbit hole doing my video on Leonatus, and people were like, wait, there's like an exiled Blood Angels captain that I've never heard of. And it's like, what? And he like falls to chaos and then he redeems himself. Like, what is this? I'm like, oh, it's a weird comic. And then you're like, any franchise, whether it's like Halo, Gears of War, or Mass Effect, or anything sci-fi related, always has really interesting narrative threads that you can piece together from the overall like bigger picture. And I always find the comics are like a really interesting test bed to be like, we could do some weird stuff. We can do some really weird stuff and put it in this little like tiny graphic novel or comic, and no one will read it, but it is there. Even like the Dark Souls stuff has some pretty interesting stuff. And yeah, so I can imagine there's probably like a furtive amount of stuff you could make into movies from weird comics that no one knows about or very few people know about.
I think so, man. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I share your sort of passion for the practical effect, and that's where I think this film succeeds pretty much. Yes, there's a few moments that aren't as amazing as others, But I think overall, there's actually some stuff that really stands up in terms of the special effects here that are still great to go back and look at now.
Hmm.
99, obviously CGI was well on its way. It was taking root, but this is still that transition period where you could do predominantly practical effects, and it wasn't out of, it was not out of
Yeah.
the norm at this point. So yeah, you get some really cool stuff. I mean, the virus itself, so this is taking over the battleship. It's killed most of the people on it, but then because this is like an alien, it's a sentient virus, right? So it's
Yeah.
taking over the technology, but then it's kind of plugging the technology into people's bodies and build. It's kind of like the Borg in Star Trek, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of building these
Well,
hybrids.
the thing it reminded me of Warhammer is the Dark Mechanicus. That's the thing it reminds me of, or like a little bit of flavor of Necrons because there's a lot of scuttly things. But I'm like, this would be. Have you seen the Warhammer TV stuff with the animations they've done? Because
Some of them.
there's one in the Blood Angels series, Angels of Death, and it's a bespoke episode about the Mechanicus. And what's fun about that episode is it's just like these are the good Mechanicus, the better Mechanicus, the ones who are like not evil, and they're still like you're just like, oh, I have this like interface for one of my machines that has like a human servitor part. Oh, there's this guardsman. I don't know how long I'm going to have to hold out during this Tyranid invasion. I'm just going to put you all in like a cage. And then, oh, that's failed. Right, you're being lobotomized, and I'm going to put you in the machine because it's for the good of the Omnissiah. And like, this is like the Dark Mechanicum version, where it's like, even near the end of the film, there's a bit where they start communicating with the virus, and the virus goes, "You are the virus." And it's like, oh, it considers the humans like it's organics, it's like diseases, where we consider the machine the virus, and it's like, oh, interesting. And then there's the whole dominant life form bits with Donald Sutherland, who's doing his atrocious Irish accent.
Incredible.
Hello there, I'm an Irish captain with my tugboat. This is my best impression of an Irishman.
He is all over the place with that accent. It was fantastic.
It's amazing. Love it.
But yeah, I think that's a great shout actually on the Mechanicum, and there's machine god stuff, and there is like I think that's a really good point on just the way in which servitors work, and like incorporating like almost soulless body parts that are still living into the machine in order to make the machine work. So there's you get loads of that.
Yeah.
The actual like later on you kind of get this what they called the Goliath cyborg, which is a huge. I mean, they did actually use some CGI for it because I think there was like some complications in the creation process. But the design is really cool. It's like it's a massive. It's very much Demon Engine-esque, I think.
Yes,
right?
Yeah. It's got that kind of triangular shape. It's like the small head, and then the lower down, it's like it's getting chunky as it goes down, and hair in holes through the ship and everything. And I like that also. Like one of the things I really liked about the film is the pacing, where it's just like, why are they not doing stuff until the main crew arrive at this like derelict ship? It's like, oh, because the original crew turned the power off, and then when they turn the power on, the cycle continues, and then it's like, oh, what are they doing? Oh, they're trying to combine the resources on the ship where it was already developing weird technologies with organics and melding the two. I like the body horror aspects. I like even the bit where one of the characters, Squeaky, gets killed and turned into like a cybernetic with the eye stuff. And there's a bit where even though he's clearly being controlled by the robot, he says to one like, "Steve," and you're like, "Oh, he's still in there. A part of him's still in there. Oh no, this is creepy." And I love the way that even with the limitations of the props they use, they do quite well with the lighting and trying to obscure some of the rough edges with the way they frame the film. And this I guess maybe it's just because of the aesthetics. I like this film quite a bit, but it's like, I don't know why people. I'm like that. I can't think of any like super glaring problems with like the pacing or the arc of some of the characters. It's kind of like conventional. It is kind of like, oh, I know who's going to survive. Oh, I know who's going to die. Oh, okay. But I don't think there's anything like particularly glaringly bad about this, other than the Irish accent, of course, which is very bad.
I mean, I think if the biggest criticism for me, so because I think the lean into body horror is great, and the special effects are really support it. They are really, really good. But then I just don't think the film is scary enough. Like ultimately, because it is very, as you say, conventional. Like it plays out in a pretty standard, we're going to go here, we're going to turn the power on, then this is going to happen. We're going to lose one member, then we're going to encounter them again. The steps through the sort of classic horror narrative when you come to a creepy ship. Like it hits every single beat as you would expect. And then there's probably not enough depth in the characters themselves to kind of sustain, beyond the visuals. So you're not getting the scares, but you're also not getting if you think back to Aliens again, the actual dialogue, I think at least, the dialogue between the Marines before the mission even starts, it's really fun. It's really snappy. There's some great moments. And even though you don't get a lot of time with those characters, they're kind of quite nicely defined as individuals who you're interested in seeing what happens to them. Here, everyone's sort of pretty similar. There's not really any memorable dialogue between anybody.
Yeah, they're kind of cookie cut. Like the Captain Robert is the only one who has scenes which explain I had all this stuff and it was my whole life's savings and we've lost it in the storm and now I'm putting a revolver in my mouth. Oh, but there's this ship. Oh, it's full of salvage. Oh, my is it Richie who's somehow a genius tech guy and
Classic,
soldier, and he's like what's up? And he's like, I'm going to evaluate this ship and all that stuff. It's like, you haven't even looked at anything. How are you evaluating this? How do you know what this dish is? And how do you know it's worth $1 million? So I think in that regard, all the characters are quite what's the word?
Quite generic, aren't they?
Cliche, I suppose, and generic.
Cliche, yeah.
It's just this is the captain who's gambling their lives, and here's Jamie Lee Curtis, who is the stoic and the only one who's focusing on the fact that this is something's wrong, and then William's just he's Mr. Baldwin, he's the good guy, he's going to try and save the day, and then it's okay, and then we've got Squeaky, who's just he's just the kind of comic relief kind of character, a little bit, but even then not much, just a little bit. Yeah, and I guess even there's that scene where there's the first time they encounter something and it's a guy who's from the torso down, all cybernetics. He's got cables coming over. He's got a pistol and he's shooting them in a corridor. And it starts off they're fighting the thing and they're shooting it and it's still coming towards them. And then it just cuts back to Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Sutherland. And then they just bring the body of the thing into the bridge and say, what? We didn't see how you deactivated it and killed. Oh, okay, that's over then. And then they start playing around with its body. And there's a great scene where its face, something springs out and it's a spidery thing and they shoot it. And it's but the scene's really well lit. So it kind of would have been better if it was a bit more horror. Maybe they shoot it in the corridor. They think it's dead. They point the guns down. Then it's you could zoom in on its face and it goes, and then it jumps at one of them and he drops his gun and he's get it off me.
Yeah, it kind of misses on these moments, and those are moments that you in a film like Alien or The Thing that does those moments incredibly well and takes advantage of the special effects, takes advantage of the surprise to really get you on set.
I love that shot in Alien though, where it's just I can't remember who it is, but there's a bit where the alien it's about and he just kind of goes ta-da, and it's it's a man in a latex suit. What is this? That's the only scene I'm I don't think that holds up too well.
Sure,
it's ta-da. Other than that, it's they're very good. And again, Event Horizon even had moments where it had there's the child running across, and then it's quiet, and then it's dark, and it's got this nice framing, and then she falls, and it's splat. And using sound and visuals and tension, whereas this film, I guess, doesn't really have any tension moments.
That's it. Actually, the tension is what's missing. Yeah, because you don't care. You don't care as much as you want to for the characters because they're not as deep. So you're not so that doesn't generate tension, and then the scares are kind of a bit lacking, so that doesn't generate tension either. So you kind of just sort of go through them it's almost one note throughout the film, and you're just sort of okay, what happens next, and so on and so forth. There is, the Goliath is cool, and there's some cool stuff there. So Donald Sutherland, I mean, you mentioned he's probably got the most interesting arc throughout the whole film because he has lost everything, so he's willing to risk everything. So he kind of gets in bed with the virus at one point and just betrays
I am the dominant life form. I'm totally Irish. I'm the dominant life form. I'll make a deal with you. Come to deck 14. Okay.
Yeah. And then he turns up at the end for the sort of big climax, and he's fully cyborged. He's fully gone in on it.
He goes into the workshop where they're cutting up one of his former crews. They're cutting the brain out, and there's piles of flesh that they don't need, and there's this body on a table without a head, and it sits up, and he's like, that's impressive that it's not even got a head, and it's like, and then they just cut his head off and put it on that body, so it's still got like the Russian star on its like tattooed chest, and you're like, that's a body for a different crew member, and then all these bits together, and there's even the bit where the guy with the pistol earlier on, where they put it on the table and the guy's like cutting into its brain, and he's like, there's like a whole screen in here and stuff. It's like, stop playing with it, and it's like moving while it's being stabbed and poked, and he's all like, why, if you can't beat them, why not join them? And starts throwing all the other cast around, and again, I wish there was a bit more like, there's a lot of spindly, spidery things like worker bee sort of,
which are cool as well. Yeah,
and the big Goliath is cool, and it's like, I wish there were a bit more like imagine if there was like a bit where there's like a whole scene where there's like a bunch of those humanoid ones that are all trying to hunt them down. They have to like, we've got to seal off the bulkhead, and we've got to like funnel them into this thing because they're going to take lots of bullets. How many explosives have we got? We've got to make sure we don't, that we can attack them here, but then the water's going to pour in, we're going to sink the ship, and we're going to damage all the stuff we're trying to salvage. Like, you could have some fun ideas with that, but instead it's just like one guy shows up, we dealt with him. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a big tanky one. That's going to be a problem. Okay. Has anyone got any RPGs? Okay. Resident Evil style.
The Scaraby sort of things. There is a sort of Necron Scarab kind of vibe. I can't remember the name of the Necron unit that's like got flesh on, that wears flesh over its own.
Like the flayed ones.
Flayed ones, right?
Yeah,
because there's a bit of that vibe as well. You can sort of feel that in the mix. And there's some cool moments with the actual, like, when you see these creatures, when you see these monsters, and sort of all of that. You don't really get to understand. I mean, yes, there is, you're the virus, it wants to just wipe everybody out. But there's not, I mean, Event Horizon, for example, as a counterpoint, you at least know the ship is like, all the ship wants is to take everybody's souls and take them back to the demon, like, universe or wherever it's been.
Yeah.
Here, I guess the sense, like in the thing, is that it wants to get to the rest of humanity, but we never really feel that. It's not like there's a ticking clock. It's not like it feels like, okay, we just need to get to dawn, or we need to sink the ship, or we need to do this, that, or the other. That obviously there's a bit of that, but it never quite feels like this is the thing that needs to happen for us to win.
Yeah, it's like I've done like a little bit of like screenwriting for fun, and one thing I like is whenever you read about screenwriters, like, you need to be like, here's an obstacle, here's an obstacle, here's an obstacle here, and you have to keep ratcheting the tension up of, even if your characters are going towards a goal, it's good to have other obstacles that rather than the characters go off on their own, it's more like, I need to get from A to B, there's a barrier, so I have to go around, and then I have to do this, and then it might take you in a different direction, but at least you can plot it out. And it's that whole thing of like, you need to dash the characters' hopes, you need to dwindle them so that the stakes go higher and higher and higher. Whereas this one, it's just kind of like, some freaky alien things on the ship. We need to blow up the ship. Blow up the ship. Like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, as soon as you get on the ship, like, it goes from 0 to 60 by getting on the ship, but then it just stays at 60. And that, it never sort of escalates from there. But yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I don't know if you've seen what Jamie Lee Curtis had to say about the film after.
No. What did she have to say?
She's not a fan of the movie overall. So I think it was, I mean, this is many years ago now. I believe this was either around the time of Halloween H20 or something like that. So a number of years later,
it's weird to think
after this film was made.
This is 30 years ago now.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting
we're getting there, buddy. We're getting there.
But she was asked what her worst film was, and she said that would be the all-time piece of shit. It's just dreadful. The only good reason to be in bad movies is that when your friends have bad movies, you can say, I've got the best one. I'm bringing Virus. So, not a fan at all. Apparently, she also really didn't get on with director John Bruno and tried to have him fired during the production.
Oh, wow.
Which was very, obviously, rightly or wrongly, who knows what happened on that set, but it definitely, as a feature film, it kind of didn't quite come together. I'm not too surprised it didn't do well at the time and hasn't been remembered that much since. Even despite those cool special effects and even despite a few fun ideas. one thing I thought was super is kind of very. I'm sure some business person had a very, it's a very successful meeting at the time, but they did a huge line of action figures to go with this film.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So a company called Resaurus, who I'm not that familiar with, but they did loads of them, and they did like a Goliath, so the big sort of monster creature at the end.
Oh yeah.
There's loads of, and they're actually I'm no expert, but they seem to be pretty good quality figures. I mean, I remember these being around in like comic book shops and stuff at the time.
Wow.
It's
Captain
wild to me.
Lexi here with his like face sprawled. He's like got his lungs showing. Like, what are these? I've never seen these before.
Yeah, because that's what's wild about this is this film leans so much. I can't remember whether this is a 15 or an 18, but the film really goes in on the body horror stuff. Like it is quite extreme. I can't imagine any kids watching or enjoying this film.
It's rated R according to Rotten Tomatoes. So.
Right. So yeah. So the one of the higher levels in the States at the very least. I'm not surprised about that. Maybe kids might like it as a sort of video nasty kind of feel, but to then do a load of like kids' toys to go with it.
I like how the Captain Everton one has two different torsos and arms, so you can make him as normal or cyborgy. I think that's kind of cool.
That's a fun idea. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you can have him normal or horrific. Amazing. And there's like most of the characters have like some kind of weird. Like, do you want to have Richie with an RPG and an AK-47? Okay, like, yeah, that's. I never knew this existed, and now I'm really curious to see if like I want to see the set in its entirety. Like,
I mean, it looks like a pretty good range. So yeah, very very curious. There was also a survival horror game for the PlayStation called
really?
Virus. It is Aware. So
wow.
I again, apparently not very well reviewed. Apparently, it's a pretty rough experience. But it's the same company, Cryo Interactive, who did the Dune game from 1992, which I remember being pretty good. So who knows? Maybe there's some.
Yeah, I'm looking at this now. It's like it's got kind of Tomb Raider, like kind of. You know, do you ever play like the Die Hard PS1 game?
Oh, I remember the Die Hard trilogy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And the first game, it was like, yeah, you're Bruce and you're going through the levels and you're like, bah, 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 and like strafing. It's kind of like that aesthetic from what I'm looking at here. And this does not look like it's in a tanker. This looks like it's in, I don't know where.
The story's on something. Yeah, they make it set. The actual story is like a parallel story back on land, on dry land.
Wow.
Do you play cops who have arrived? I think it's like a hotel near the docks or something.
Okay.
And the virus is in the hotel, and so you're making your way around the hotel. Because I think they were very much going for a Resident Evil, maybe a Silent Hill feel.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Never seen that before.
So yeah, Virus, it went way beyond just a sort of forgotten movie. There's a forgotten line of action figures and a forgotten video game as well.
And a really terrible box art as well. Just like a lightning bolt hitting Earth. Like, what?
Yeah, it just tells you nothing at all.
Yeah. Oh,
well. One thing I did mean to mention as well was I don't know if you're familiar with the Games Workshop's Dark Future setting. If you've seen any of that stuff from back in the day.
Say I have. I don't think so.
So that was kind of more. So that was late 80s. That's more like a Mad Max-esque kind of game. It was an attempt to do like miniature-based, vehicle-based miniature combat. So you're like racing your cars around. But there was a series of books that went with it were absolutely incredible. So these books were like post-apocalyptic. They kind of were a bit Blade Runner and a bit Mad Max at the same time.
Okay.
Really, really good books. But one of those is called Demon Download. And that features a literal demon that is summoned, but it's summoned into a computer system. And then it uses it basically inside the computer, is able to move around, gets into a fortress, and then basically takes over lots of different bits of technology in this fort. So in the kitchens, it's like using all of the the choppers and the mixers and the whisks and all this kind of stuff to basically kill people. But then it does the same thing as in Virus, where it kind of takes technology and puts it into bodies and then runs around.
If you bear with me 1 second, I'll show you. It reminds me of something else.
Sure.
Reminds me of System Shock.
Sure. Yes.
Because that one. I mean, it's a space station rather than a ship, but it's like away from everyone else in civilization. Malevolent robot turning people into cyborgs. Yeah, good fun game, 1 and 2. And I think also there's an element of that. Like I just had that moment like, oh yeah, it's basically just System Shock on a ship. Oh yeah, System Ship, if you will.
But yeah, I mean, because I'm not too surprised. Like it's a generic enough concept. It very much feels like an episode of the X-Files, but with a bigger budget and without a Mulder and a Scully. But it kind of is, it's that kind of thing. It's that kind of approach. It's a cool idea that maybe in this case it wasn't quite executed perfectly, I suppose.
They didn't really know if they wanted to be an action film, a thriller film, or a horror film, I suppose. It was like, pick one. You can have slices, but like you can't go 33% either, because if you try to please everyone, you'll please no one. It's like make one or the other. I feel like though this could be like you could retrofit this story into a Warhammer like short or like an animation where it's like you have the obliterator virus being sent to a planet via satellite, or something crashes and then the populace get infected and it's the Dark Mechanicus. Cheeky boys, they're trying to turn me into a battery again. Oh no.
Yeah. It definitely works for that. I think it would work really well as as an adventure for a role-playing game as well. So if you want to play, if you're playing your Imperium Maledictum or what have you, like this could be a self-contained, just an adventure where you're interacting, because it could literally just be chaos. Like this could be the virus itself could be the act of a chaos god, just having a bit of weird techno zombie fun.
I also feel like you could have because it's integrating things to make itself better at hunting the humans. You could even have like a mechanic where it's like, depending on how you prioritize different survivors, it learns different things from the people it consumes and integrates with, so that as you go through the game, it gets smarter and smarter, and it kind of like learns how to use what it's pieced together from its victims to try and harry you. And I'm like, yeah, that could be a fun idea.
That sounds cool. Yeah, I like
that.
Yeah. But yes, speaking of, a film that can't quite make up its mind and maybe is trying a few different things, how about we get into our second feature, which is 1985's Lifeforce.
Oh yes. I need to. Oh, go for it. Go for it.
Well, I mean, actually, even just before that, you mentioned that both of these films start with like a lot of like weird lights in the sky and sinister sort of goings on there. I'm just going to say, you're on your screen. Yeah, you're about to encounter some of these whatever these space entities are that are coming to.
Kind of, not really.
No, it's not. It's not.
I think that's not better.
We'll survive it. We'll be okay.
The light in the sky, they're coming for me. They're going to assimilate me into the robot. There we go. That's
there better. You are. Yeah, we can see you again. You had like a full-on halo. That was a full, it was like seeing the Emperor or Sigma or something right there. But yes, the Lifeforce, very interesting movie, I think. This one, it starts with it's in Halley's Comet, in the shadow of that is discovered what seems to be an abandoned spacecraft. So a mission is sent out to check it out, or is redirected to check it out. When they get onto it, they discover that just sort of like in the zero-G space, there are these sort of large kind of space creatures, almost like bat-type creatures, just sort of, but they're all completely calcified. They're just completely like dried out, freeze-dried in space. And then they find, on this abandoned ship, 3 completely naked.
A naked lady.
Humanoids, yeah. 1 lady, 2 men. They bring these sort of these clear glass sarcophagi with these sleeping or dead or whatever it might be, cryostasis humans back onto their ship. There's a problem that happens just as they're getting back to Earth. We don't know what it is quite, but everybody dies except for 1 guy. And then the aliens are brought, these humanoid creatures are brought back to Earth with 1 survivor. And from there, things get kind of wild. So,
well, bear in mind, I hadn't watched or heard of this before. So when I watched this with my girlfriend, I will quote what Jordan sent to me before I said, all right, we're just about to watch this. Should warn you both that there is a bit of nudity in it too, but in an odd way rather than a sexual one.
Yeah, that was
What a quote.
because you two, and maybe this is, I don't know, maybe I was being too cautious. But when you said, I'm about to sit down and watch it with my girlfriend, I thought, okay, they're going to think that Jordan is the weirdest guy. Like, what is this guy telling us to watch? Proper, proper
to, to
creep.
to be fair, before we watched this, I was watching a bit of House MD because I like it's like my little comfort watch, and I just happened to like be watching the episode where it starts off with a couple having sex. And so my girlfriend's like, "Are you watching porn?" I'm like, "No, I'm watching Hugh Laurie fix medical emergencies. This is just how it starts. Don't worry about it. It's fine." But yeah, this is. I must say, I preferred Virus to this one.
Sure.
This one. I don't know what you think about it, but the way I would describe this film is, I mean, it was released in 1985, right? A couple years before Next Gen, I believe, because there's a
Sure.
Patrick
Yes.
Stewart connection.
Yep.
This feels like a movie that would be produced in the 50s
Right.
to me, because if you put a black and white filter on it, I feel like you'd get a similar production because it's like like the beginning of the film is truncated with a lot of like you have the opening scene, you have the ending which is a bit more bombastic, and then the middle is a lot of people in rooms
Sure.
in uniforms
Yes.
in like old like I don't know how you, like an old school kind of like decor,
Yeah.
stuffy men who look about 50 who are claiming to be in their 30s.
Sure.
What's going on here? Is rationing still a thing here? What's going on? I don't
Yeah.
know.
I think you're dead right. I think it absolutely. I mean, there's almost a Quatermass kind of feel to it, and it's some of that's intentional. So the director of this is Tobe Hooper. So he directed Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He's done loads of horror,
Poltergeist.
loads of other stuff.
Yeah.
But he said that he wanted to make this film into basically a high budget Hammer horror film. So he was going for that kind of feel. And you're totally right. I mean, structurally, this film is bizarre. You know, there's like 5 acts probably, and they're almost, you know, the first and the fifth acts are completely different to the middle 3. And then the middle 3 are kind of like plodding and sort of strange. But yeah, you do get to. So the reason I was warning you about the nudity is that the female alien is just naked for the entire film. And basically she comes back to life and then is able to, it turns out these are space vampires, essentially, and they are able to drain the life force of anybody. And obviously, you know, given that this is a sort of exploitative horror film, that's through kissing or through having sex. So there's like, you know, physical contact, drains the life of whoever their victim is, turns them into like a desiccated zombie, essentially.
Drains them of their fluids, so to speak.
Completely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Takes them out, turns them into prunes. I see where
They
this is
completely
going. Okay.
pruned, completely. And then sort of go about their business. The commander of the mission that had rescued them, the only survivor from that mission, has a sort of psychic connection with this lead space vampire who the character doesn't have a name. So is just the space girl.
Woman.
Which is a bit
dangerous
rough,
woman number 1. Oh.
But basically, she escapes and goes off on a bit of a killing spree across London. The male space vampires is dealt with pretty much immediately. The other one also escapes and kind of goes on their own sort of little jaunt. But that's essentially the next sort of couple of acts is kind of trying to work out what's going on. So, like, what's the science of this thing? And then also the commander following his psychic visions with the help of a detective to try and track down this naked space lady who is walking around killing people.
Before we go any further as well, I'd also like to mention, because you mentioned the director, but I'd also like to mention Dan O'Bannon, who wrote this.
Yes.
This guy wrote Alien, Aliens, Return of the Living Dead. He did Alien Earth, which recently came out, Romulus, basically all the Alien franchise.
I think he's credited on all of Alien because he helped co-create the Alien franchise.
Even Alien Isolation. He
worked on Heavy Metal as well.
He worked, and again, the director who worked on the previous film also worked on Heavy Metal.
Sure, yeah.
So it's like you've got the James Cameron, and again, they're all connected.
They are all connected.
It's not intentional. I did not like pick Virus for that reason. But yeah, and what a strangely like. I got to admit, like this film, I think the reason I wasn't as keen on it as Virus is just because it didn't have that visual flair. And if you're going to have like a visual effects director of course the props and stuff are going to look really nice. Whereas this one, until about the last 20 minutes, is quite muted and dull in like the present. Because again, it's like, oh, beginning, look at this big green comet, and you go inside, and it's got like these the little like containment cells the aliens are in. They reminded me of like Superman, where they're like crystalline fortress of solitude amongst this hive, this nest with like gargoyle / vampire-esque creatures floating about, and they're there with their like massive fridges on their back, just going through in space, and we're just like, look at them, oh look at them, wee. And then the aesthetics get a bit more bizarre right at the very closing act, but for the majority, it's like, here's men in trench coats, here's a woman with her boobies out, here's a man who doesn't have boobies, but he's also not wearing anything. But don't worry, he's been killed by a grenade. Cool. It's like there was a lot of exposition and a lot of slow, and then Patrick Stewart shows up, and you're like, oh, this is pre-Star Trek. This is when he wasn't quite as. Why is he talking with the lady's voice? This is so strange. I really want to go back to this film and record just the scenes with Patrick Stewart and make like GIFs and little clips out of it, because they're priceless. Patrick Stewart. When me and my girlfriend's like, when is he going to be in here? When is it? Oh, there he is, and he's like, doesn't disappoint. Does a very strange performance. I
mean, I thought this was really promising with that opening scene. Like, I actually did really, it's kind of, I'm not saying it's on this level at all, but it's kind of 2001-esque, like space, the majesty and the terror of space. Like, these vast, enormous spaces, these weird things. I mean, this film is actually based on a book. So it's from 1976. It's called The Space Vampires.
By
so I think
Colin
it probably,
Wilson.
although it probably doesn't help calling it Lifeforce instead, which isn't the best name. Is The Space Vampires the best name? I don't know. But there is like a lot of almost Cthulhu-esque elements to the sort of, apparently the book is much more Cthulhu-esque, much more Lovecraftian. But these are space entities that have vampiric sort of, there's similarities to what we would define as a vampire. But they're coming to Earth and they're doing weird stuff. And like, there's a lot of cool ideas here. But yeah, the middle of this film is just, okay, we're going to go to the lab and we're going to explore this. Then we're going to talk about it. Then we're going to get a police report about something that's happening somewhere else, and we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to all run to somewhere else, and then we're going to talk about that. So there's like lots of that. They don't really ever feel like they've got a handle on the situation, but they also don't feel competent, like they would, like any of these detectives or investigators would ever get a handle on it.
Well, Kane is like a member of the SAS, and apparently they're the ones who are involved with the military. And I'm like, one of my big pet peeves about like any film that involve like a military force is when they're just there with like they don't look like they're competent. Like, sure. I like films where it's like the military come in and they know how to quarantine something. They're not just like looking gormless with the guns pointed at the floor and then, oh, I got jumped. It's like, you're supposed to be like elite special forces and you're getting jumped by like a naked lady. It's like, you got AUG assault rifle, and then there is a bit where they see the two male ones are like throw some grenades, and they like, but it takes them a while. There's two of them just like, God blimey, look at that man who's naked who's come out of the basement. Oh, hello, governor, we should shoot him in the chest. Let's do that. It's like, you could have done that quicker.
Yeah, there's no safety protocol. There's no one has even thought about, okay, what happens if this thing we're just bringing them some random humanoid people we found in space, and we're going to bring them back, and they don't even seem to lock the doors. They're literally just like walking in and out,
and they put them in like an office building. It's like it's not even like a Resident Evil-esque like sterile room with sealed doors and like laser grids. It's just like, let's put them in the basement. There's even a bit where they lock up one of the infected, and it's just like, it reminded me of like a mail room or something. It's just like, it's just like a cage. We have this. It's a holdover from back in the Victorian era. It's just like big iron bars, or just padlock it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And the infected, although speaking of the practical effects, the infected are quite fun.
Yeah, I think they're really cool, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So basically any of the victims that have been completely drained of their life force, they essentially they're dead bodies, but they can still come back to life. They sort of zombified them. And they can also, there's like psychic connections, so they can speak through them. They can also, those zombies can then drain the life force of others to become space vampires themselves.
But if they don't do it within 2 hours, I think it was the guy said, it's
Something
like
like this,
you
yeah.
blow up into like a cloud of ashes. I'm like, what the hell
Yeah.
what's going on with that? That's strange.
It was very strange, but the special effects on it, although they are, I'm not going to say that they're like perfect or amazing, but like they were pretty good. Like they were, what's the right term here? I guess they were fun to watch, even if they weren't realistic. They were quite fun to watch.
They were entertaining. Yeah,
it's entertaining. When they were animated, when they were exploding, it's quite cool.
It was like, what if we put a party popper inside someone? Like, pop, way! That was good. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, and then like you say, the adventure kind of continues, and we get to Patrick Stewart. So he is a doctor. They think that they have found that the space vampires are like jumping between bodies, and they think they've tracked it down to, I think the male one, they've tracked it down to someone else at this potential point. Or it might even be the female one, I forget now. But they are tracking it down to who they think it's in, and they go to investigate that person. Turns out that our space commander, the sole survivor, is like quite unhinged and not
the colonel,
like, emotionally prepared to deal with these situations. He gets quite violent. He's quite, he's way over the top. But we discover that it's actually in Patrick Stewart. Twist. So that's who it's leaped into. So then you get this kind of like the very, very dodgy sort of fight scene, and like there's some taunting and kind of communication there. But yeah, it was fun to see Patrick Stewart just having a bit of a sort of sci-fi bit of nonsense pre Next Generation.
Yeah, it was like, I did check the time, and I'm like, yeah, this is just before he was successful with Next Gen. I was like, oh my Patrick, what's this? And it's like, again, it's just the bit where he's like lying on a table and he's speaking the dialogue of the woman and talking, and I'm like, imagine being in that realm, like being the cameraman filming that and not knowing the script in its entirety and being like, what the hell am I doing with my life? What is happening? What's going on?
I really hope I hear back from the Star Trek people. I've done my audition and I'm very hopeful.
I'd love to bring a copy of Lifeforce on Blu-ray to Patrick Stewart and be like, could you sign this? And just see his expression go.
I think he would word for word use the same quote as Jamie Lee Curtis about
yeah. We've all been at a bunch of trollop now and then.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy it. I prefer the ones where I'm an action movie star. Have you seen the one where I have a pistol and I run around a swimming pool? I'm very clever and action man.
There is, because the sort of this portion of the film kind of plays out almost like Species, the sci-fi movie. Which features H.R. Giger designs for the actual Alien. Again, kind of link to Alien as a franchise a little bit. So this is exploring ideas that are explored elsewhere that are quite fertile ground for sci-fi horror. So there is some cool stuff to like explore in it. Where it then sort of where the film then goes is really wild. Because the final act basically becomes like a zombie movie. So London they end up having to quarantine London. And it felt like this was just out of nowhere to me.
Yeah. But it went from, we have two naked people in our basement who've run away, to all of London is infected and the military is compromised and there's hundreds of them. It's like, when did this happen? We went from, we found a dead woman in a park, in Hyde Park, who's been drained of life, to there's hundreds of them around Chancery Lane mobbing people and tearing them apart. I'm like, this was, they needed an extra scene between these two fights.
maybe two even. But really it's ambitious, I think. And I think if they maybe hadn't spent quite so much time in the middle sort of meandering about and had done more work to kind of establish up to this, like it could have worked. I mean, you kind of, because we're following, so Steve Railsback is the actor who plays the sort of space commander, who folks may remember from, he was in the X-Files. He played Dwayne Barry, if people remember that from an early, I think it's season 2, a couple of episodes. I remember him very, very clearly because I had a lot of the X-Files CCG, and that included a Dwayne Barry card. So I've seen his face many, many times playing the X-Files card game. But yeah, he's playing this super intense guy. And what we find out from him is that he was actually compromised on the spaceship. So he's the sole survivor, and he set fire to the spaceship and killed off the rest of the crew because he'd already been seduced and kind of compromised, sort of become a thrall
because
of the
he
space
was
vampires.
Because the crew were like slowly being picked off, and they'd find like the shriveled up prune corpses, and then when they were all dead, because he was kind of unknowingly, or he explains it as like, I've never felt love like this before. He's like completely bewitched by the saucy woman in the crystal with her knockers out, and then he's like, okay, I have enough willpower to see if I can just like burn it all down. There's like a really laborious, I'm gonna open every single lever that floods oxygen into the compartments, and then I'm just gonna set fire to it with like this crazy like 80s Flash, not even that, like Flash Gordon-esque like blowtorch thingy, whatever that was. And then he jumps into an escape pod that's like so tiny. It's like, I'm glad that you are the only one left, because if this was intended for the crew, you are not getting in that escape pod. And there is also Peter Firth, who's the SAS guy, who's like,
yes,
he the only thing I know him from was he was in The Hunt for Red October as Ivan Putin.
Sure, he was in Spooks as well. Is what I
Spooks,
recognize him from. Yeah, he was like the person, the commander or the person in charge of the Spooks unit.
Yeah, and he's been in like things here and there, but
yeah.
I was just like, oh, it's that guy as well. And Highlander,
right?
But a TV series, not the movie. So like the worst Highlander. It's a shame. Were you in Highlander? Yeah, not that one. Oh.
But yeah, so the movie, I think this is where the ambition sort of comes in, because you could have just done a movie that was only on the spaceship, right? You could have just drawn that out, and it might have been a really interesting, sort of more restrained film and could have worked. But they did come back to London, and they did sort of say, okay, let's take it to the next level and see what happens when they escape, when they're just like loose on London. How do things escalate? But it's so much material to try and squeeze into just all of a sudden London is full of zombies.
And they also shoehorn the bit where there's like a big sword at one point. And it's like,
this is my favorite bit, yeah,
to kill the thing. And then it's just like, all our hope hinges on Peter Firth with like a pistol and a sword running through London. Like, I gotta kill the vampire. Yeah, okay, right, fair enough. There's our what's the word for the convenient, like the Deus Ex Machina for the story. Like, we need the special sword from like a Gothic museum. Cool. Okay. That's what we're gonna
because you kind of get like a load of lore, just exposition is suddenly dropped of like, because you can kill them by leaded iron through the heart or just below the heart, and there's like a special weapon. You do get quite a cool like reveal on the like who has been the man in charge, who like ran the labs and all that sort of stuff.
Balada, I think it is.
Yes, that's right. And Peter Firth has to confront him. They, because Peter Firth thinks that they've killed the male vampire, but actually it's leapt into the commander's body, and so he then kills him with the ancient lore sword. So you kind of get a good moment with that. That's quite cool. But yeah, the main sort of the main commander element. So Steve Railsback and Matilda May, who plays the female space vampire, they kind of they have physical contact in a crypt in St. Paul's, I think.
Yeah, they're just, it's like, oh, where are we going to go? Like this holy, this is like, I remember I was like, where is like the Warhammer connection to this? And then like got to the end, I'm like, I'm seeing it now. You're going to go into the middle of St. Paul's with like all the religious iconography. There's a laser beam going into the sky. There's like, we're bringing the swords to kill the thing. And it's like warp shenanigans maybe. And I'm like, oh, I see. For a long time, it was them in offices. And I'm like, this isn't very Warhammer. And then it was like, oh, I see where we're going. Okay.
We'll come. But there is something else that's very Warhammer, and I feel, and this is purely on me, this one, so this is not a citation for anyone else, but we'll come back to that. But yeah, you basically get to this end moment where the female space vampire is like, I want you to join me, and then he kind of decides to choose humanity instead.
Yeah. And he takes all his clothes off first, though.
Obviously, he has to be naked, because now he's a space vampire too, so you have to be completely naked.
You'll look the part.
There's some cool model work for London as well. They do some pretty cool, and there's some special effects and stuff there. It is, and it just has a big. Oh, I forgot to mention probably the coolest special effects bit was when there's like a blood avatar forms inside a helicopter, just of like disembodied blood turns into
Patrick Stewart's like got a massive nosebleed and it's going out the side of his face and it's like pooling together into the lady.
It's cool.
Like we watched that bit and we're like, something's happening.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's like splat. Okay.
Yeah, it's very cool.
And it goes on for ages. It's like, here's Patrick, here's the other guy, here's Patrick, and it keeps going like more blood, more blood, more blood. And like his face is drenched in blood. I get it. And it's like more blood. Look how much blood. And okay, I get it. It's a blood lady. Cool.
But yeah, ultimately, this film it's a wild, unhinged adventure. I think, like you said, if you've got a magnum of wine, is probably the best way to approach it. And to have, maybe lower expectations. I think it is it's fun if you're there for the sort of unhinged ride, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense and it doesn't hang together that comfortably.
I think the thing was, though, is like, I think we can accept that Virus is a touch and go movie because the guy who directed it was a VFX guy. So it's like he doesn't necessarily have the skill set as a director. But this one's like, that's an actual director and an actual writer
who's made some great stuff, right?
And they've made like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Alien, and it's like, okay. And we all have bad days, I suppose, but it's like, what's going? That's like that's a drop in quality. Like, not to denigrate it too much, but I'm like, those are like really, really well like regarded horror
classics,
movies.
right? Timeless classics,
like linchpin movies that defined entire generations of horror. And then you get to Lifeforce, and it's just like two naked people at the end, like holding each other as a laser beams in the sky, and then Peter Firth going, stab her with the sword, stab her right here, right in the gut, stab her. Okay. It's like, okay. What a way to end.
It is. It's an odd one. I really do think it's the ambition. I've not read the book, so I don't know. Like, I believe this diverges a bit from the actual novel, but some elements of it have been retained in terms of like, key plot points. Maybe there was just too much material to try and get into a single film,
and how much maybe as well.
They were tackling it in a weird way. I don't think that the aliens needed to be naked throughout. I don't think that adds anything at all. It's just a bit skeevy.
There was a producer somewhere just like, we need to get our tits out. Like, no, you should. It's like, we'll sell so many more tickets.
Yeah.
In the first 10 minutes, we see boobies. Like, okay.
Yeah, and if anything, it has the opposite effect, right? It makes it harder to recommend the film. It makes it, I had to send you a warning because it felt weird.
The one line my girlfriend kept repeating was, I hope she got paid well for this. So, yeah, I hope so too.
Fair enough. Yeah, absolutely hope she got paid well. Apparently, according to Amazon Prime Video's like X-ray trivia that comes up when you're watching a movie, apparently they auditioned 1,000 women for that role, and the reason was that most of them refused to be naked for the part, which fair enough, I say. I'm not surprised by that. And they at no point did they think maybe she doesn't need to be naked for the whole movie then.
Yeah, I mean, even Arnie in Terminator, he's like naked for a few seconds. And
sure,
like,
establish the concept and then move on. There was in terms of like unseen special effects, I think there's a pretty cool moment because the windows shatter and she just walks out a lot, like across all of the broken glass. And that was actually a really good special effects. I don't know if it's like something they did on a sole of her feet or like sugar glass or what have you.
Because isn't there that there's that kind of glass you can get that they use for like if you bash a bottle over someone's head in a film and it just shatters, and it's like there's that great Auntie Donna sketch where it's just them in a pub and they're just smashing bottles again and again over their faces. So obviously you're not going to get this like cutting your eyes or anything. So I assume they like just put that everywhere, and it's like, it feels a bit crinkly, but it's not too bad.
Yeah, it does, but it looks good. It like in terms of like showing that like power in that moment is a pretty cool way to do it. But I mean, the reason that I think there is a connection here with Warhammer, right? Tenuous as this may be. I mean, I think just the actual the initial act, I think, is Warhammery in terms of its eldritch space horrors. So I think there's a certain element there, right? But I'm going to take you back to Rogue Trader. So Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader.
I mean, that was what I wrote, but still. Like Rogue Trader, okay.
But in Rogue Trader, right, you may recall that there are vampires in Rogue Trader. And the descriptions of those vampires, you have to bear with me because I'm read out a couple of quotes here. So vampires are polymorphic entities able to change their metabolism in order to resemble creatures amongst whom they live. Their natural shape, if such it can be called, is bat-like, although approximately human-sized. They have no home world. Where they evolved and why they have come to occupy a parasitic position within alien societies is unknown. Vampires maintain their lives by absorbing the life force of other creatures achieved through prolonged physical contact. If a victim is completely drained of willpower, it can be revived as a zombie, a will-less servant completely under the vampire's control.
Wow. So I was struggling for a connection. You've just like knocked it out of the park. And I was like, oh, wow.
Right, I feel...
Who was plagiarizing who? That's the question.
I mean, I don't even know. It's probably parallel thinking, right? Because there's a lot of obvious ideas there in terms of we're going to create... if we're doing a sci-fi game, if we're doing something sci-fi and we want to put vampires in, shape-changing aliens who drain life force instead of drinking blood kind of feels like there must be more examples of this out there, right?
I have only one question about that excerpt.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any mention that they have to be naked?
No, there isn't.
Okay, I'll give them a free pass then. Okay.
But yeah, I just thought that was it's quite close in terms of, how these vampires, how the space vampires in Rogue Trader and the space vampires in Lifeforce operate. Obviously, the particulars of their use and the sort of execution is different. But there's a lot of similar fundamentals that I thought was quite interesting.
It's strange, though, because I understand the whole, like, draining connection to a vampire, but they're not very vampiric other than, like, there's the bats in the spaceship, but there's never any point where they get the fangs out. There's no, like, holy water or crucifix. Like, they are very, very tangentially connected as vampires in that they sustain themselves through leeching energy off people. Which I feel like it might have been fun to have more of that involved. Where it's like, oh, vampires! Like you could have a throwaway scene where like someone tries to fight one, it's like, puts the crucifix, and it's just like snap, punch in the face, or like splashing with the holy water in St. Paul's or something like. Oh, they're not like vampires; they're like space vampires.
Space vampires. That's right. Yeah,
vampires, if you will.
I think it's an interesting way to take the sort of from common vampire folklore to take it into space and to go, okay, we want to remove some of the sort of more fantasy elements, the fangs and the drinking blood, turn it into that leeching, like just your human essence, your general life force. That kind of makes sense, giving them a psychic power and psychic connections, all of that kind of stuff. That all makes sense. I think actually the sort of bat-like entities that you see in the spaceship at the start of Lifeforce and the image in Rogue Trader of a bat-like entity, there's a similarity there as well.
But you can definitely tell they put that in the intro, and then there's someone in the budgeting team went, "How much did that cost to make?" You're not getting any more of those for the entire film.
You're
not making any more. Or the bit where he stabs the male vampire, and he briefly turns into one, and then he just instantly explodes. Like, oh, okay, you're just showing off for a last dash. Like we still had this in the prop department. Let's go, one more showing. Oh.
Yeah, actually, just with you mentioning the idea of leeching and life force vampires, that reminds me of What We Do in the Shadows and the sort of leeching from people and sort of just I can't remember how they describe it, but he sort of takes everyone's positivity.
It's me, Colin Robinson. The most interesting thing about taxes is that you got your exemptions you gotta account for at the end of the year. Although in the current situation with the UK government, if you're self-employed, you're gonna have to do your taxes every quarter now because of the Labour government. So you got to take account of that. And just like
just a proper like social vampire.
Yeah.
So maybe in the next season of that show, they could introduce space vampires, and they've got another type to include as well.
Do a brand new set of vampires, and it's just like 3 energy vampires and 1 normal one to like invert it. That'd be fun.
But an interesting. We say that they didn't include the vampire creatures from a budgetary perspective, and that might be the case. But then they also did like some big budget stuff, with the helicopters, with the blood avatars, with the St. Paul's and the models and the soldiers.
but it is all in that last act. So
yeah, they've spent it all on that bit.
My cynical brain is they bookended the video with the expensive stuff, and then I went, all right, we can rent this building out for a week, for a month. I'm going to film everything in this, and then we can go to Hyde Park, and we can get like a prop made of a naked drained prune lady and just shove it there and get someone like, oh, next door they're doing the bill. Right, we'll put on this police officer costume and these SAS guys, like, okay, bring them in. Yeah. Go to the Army and Navy, get some uniforms, 20 quid, done. Yeah, it's a sight to behold.
So, I mean, in summary, I think you already said that you preferred Virus of the two. Does that's held strong through the
yeah? Even just the fact that they obviously like filmed on that ship or something. Like, it's impressive that they had this big ship and they had all these corridors and like just the little workshop with the little tinkering, making the creations. That one room which they reuse a couple times. I'm like, I really like that. And it's got a very tactile, there's very little CGI. The props are there. The little automatons, not automaton, what are they called? The like puppets that they use in movies, not automatons. Animatronics, that's the one. Sure. Yeah, the little animatronics they make of the little spiders going just scuttling along. They're fun. Although when the squeaky goes and he sees like the big cable being tugged into a big abyss, and we're just like, don't go in the hole. No, don't crawl in there, you idiots. Like, there are moments like that. But I really like the props and even the CGI with the captain when he's like cyberneticized and he's got the little like flicking eye lens thing, and he's still got his little captain's hat on despite all the like neck the scar tissue on his neck stapling him onto the torso. I'm like, I like that. Whereas this one, it was just like, it's a naked lady. It's a naked lady.
Yeah, the spectacle's not quite there, is it? Even if there are cool ideas and some cool moments, there's kind of, for me at least, lacking in certain compelling or exciting.
And I did look for the bit where I don't know if they filmed it at Chancery Lane, but I did go to Chancery Lane to like see if I could find the station and everything. And I'm like, this doesn't quite look the same. I don't know if they filmed it here or somewhere else, but it's like, oh, there's a little mention of Chancery Lane in St. Paul's Cathedral. I'm like, okay, fair enough. I had to look around and it was going to rain, so I'm like, I'm not going to St. Paul's.
I suppose a good 30 years later now, right? So
yeah,
things may have changed.
Yeah, but I had a look-see anyway. I couldn't find much, but just imagining the zombies running by, and I was just seeing people like in Ubers, like, oh, I wonder how they'd manage the vampires attacking.
As a sort of double bill, I think there is some interesting overlap, though, in terms of like exploring these different ideas, these sort of sci-fi horror approaches. Both, to me, feel very X-Files-y. If there's a continued sort of a shared thing there, and then in terms of the Warhammer-ness, those little moments, little ideas, little visuals, some of the special effects, some of this stuff. But yeah, an interesting. I enjoyed visiting with Lifeforce and revisiting Virus for this one.
Yeah, it was good fun. Well, it does help if you have a magnum of wine to get through it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the trick. That is for sure the way to do it. But we'll leave it there. I'm sure we can talk way more about these ridiculous adventures. But thank you so much for joining me, man. It's been really great fun. I've had a lot of good chat there. That was great.
Yeah, bit of fun.
On the next episode of the Warhammer Film Club, Dave from MS Paints returns to chat about Ralph Bakshi's The Lord of the Rings. And you can listen to that episode right now at patreon.com/Jordan Sorcery.